Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Claire Downs. Claire is a comedian, writer, and producer who lives in Los Angeles. A graduate of NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, she does a bit of everything. She's sold pilots, she's written scripts, and she's written for Cosmopolitan, The Daily Dot, and Vice Motherboard. And one of her UCB sketches has over 108 million views on YouTube. I watched it before this and laughed out loud. Welcome, Claire.
Hi.
So, Claire, if you weren't working as a comedian, a writer, or a producer, what would you be doing?
Well, this would involve maybe a genetic shift. I love language, and this is also the same answer to what my superpower would be. I wish I could speak more than English as a primary language, or teaching English as a second language. I love language. I think it's funny. And I think the pursuit of learning language is amazing. And I have so much respect for people who teach it, and also anyone who's bilingual or multilingual, I just think is amazing. So maybe I would be a language teacher.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly can use words well in English. So I don't think it would require that much of a shift, no?
No, but it's that brain thing. When I was in high school, I took French, and my best friend in French class was this boy named Devin. And Devin wanted to be a pilot. So his idea was that he was going to take as many languages as possible. So he was taking French, Spanish, and Italian at the same time. And he was like acing all of these. And I just was like struggling in French to get through it. And it's like I wanted it, but I didn't have the piece of brain that allowed me to just fluently get into that.
I see. Well, at least you want it. I have to admit, I just don't think I'm going to learn a second language in my life. And,
yeah.
And there's a lot of people who on the dating apps wouldn't want to go out with me if I ever said that out loud, which
sure.
I have. I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be too hard. I'd have so many other things I want to do. And frankly, and this is terrible to say, it's so easy to travel if you only speak English.
Right. We have the universal language.
It's such a luxury as an American. There have been a few places in the world that I've been that it's been hard, like places in China.
Yeah.
And so on. But for the most part, I don't even, I learned how to say hello, thank you, excuse me, good morning, or good afternoon. And it goes really far in 90% really of the places in the world.
Yeah. The bar is really low.
It's incredible.
For, I think, American English speakers to just try. Because I can't believe, one time I went to Tijuana, and I just couldn't believe the Americans there that weren't even trying an hola, a buenos dias, anything, even butchering it. They couldn't even do it. And I'm like, just try a little.
Well, they also have too much tequila in their system at the time. But, I find that my language inability and my, to be honest, lack of motivation aside, I do find that being friendly, smiling, being polite, being patient gets you 3/4 of the way there in most places in the world.
Yes. Americans are, I'm biased obviously in saying this, but I think we are the friendliest people in my travels, to the point where people are like, why do they smile so much? Mm-hmm. What are they laughing at? Why are they smiling? But I think it's our way of being from a melting pot. I think we do give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to, to cultural faux pas, but I don't know if that's true in other countries.
Yeah. I will give you, I'll give you the people friendlier than us.
Oh, yes, please.
The Kiwis.
Okay.
The folks from New Zealand. Australians are notoriously friendly and funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spent a lot of time in Australia. I did a whole bunch of this podcast with Australian comics. And I did a little short vacation, 5 days in the South Island in New Zealand.
Cool.
And their friendliness was almost off-putting for me because it made me suspicious.
Right.
So my example of this is I was in a town. I had checked into the hotel. I went up to my room. I dropped all my stuff off. I was going to come downstairs and go for a walk and just explore the city. And I had a question for the front desk person. There were 2 people working the front desk. It was a slow day. And we started talking. And then they just kept talking. And they were talking. They were nice and they were friendly. And I was, at some point, I was like, we need to wrap this up. I need to get going.
Yeah.
But normally you get the sense from someone who's working a job, at some point they're like, okay, mister, move on.
Yeah.
But these Kiwis would have talked to me for an hour. It was incredible. It was super fun. The other example is I was actually telling a Kiwi about, I hope Kiwi's not pejorative. I don't think it is. I think it's affectionate.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have no idea.
I'll find out. Was this experience in airports. So if you're standing in a New Zealand airport at baggage claim, there'll be a group of people together having an animated conversation. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, oh, they must be all traveling together. And then the bags will come out and they'll just pick up the bag and they'll just bye and walk away. You're like, oh my God, that was a group of strangers.
Yeah.
Incredible. So this is a perfect segue into my question for you. So you have lived in 3 great comedy cities.
Yes,
right?
that is true.
So you're from Chicago.
Yes.
You were educated, lived and worked in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're obviously in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about this because when we were launching the Humor Code, we did, as part of our promotion, we actually created an algorithm. So the Humor Research Lab created an algorithm that ranked the funniest cities in America.
Right.
And Chicago was number 1.
Yeah.
New York was 6 and LA was 7, or vice versa. LA was 6 and New York was 7. Mm-hmm. So these are great comedy cities.
Yeah.
Can you characterize their differences?
Sure. So okay. I started my comedy training.
By the way, Claire's very happy about this question.
Yeah. I never get asked this because, so I started my comedy training at the Second City. This is so crazy, but when I was in high school, I didn't get into the play, the school play, and it was devastating. And so I tried to get on they had junior improv teams there for teenagers that opened for the main show there. Okay. It was called the Teen Ensemble. And this is where I met my friends that were from all different schools that were so funny. And I got on this team. And so that's where I began my training, and I would do improv classes and then adult improv classes there in the summers when I was home. Not really sketch. I don't think they had teenage sketch classes then. I think I wrote sketches with yes, I did. I wrote sketches with my friends in Chicago. So I would characterize the Chicago style of comedy as definitely, it's expert in self-deprecation, first of all. I mean, you take the Midwestern people who are very friendly and polite.
Aw shucks.
Aw shucks. But then you also add the beneath that politeness, I fuck up too. Mm-hmm. And you make jokes about, how not everything is perfect all the time. And I think also being in the Midwest, you lose a lot of the political harshness of the coasts. Not being near DC. Now,
DC was 3rd or 4th on the list, interestingly.
Yeah, and I've never lived in DC, but not being near the coast. Now, this isn't to say that there isn't political comedy in Chicago. The Second City has done a lot of political comedy, but you lose some of that, I think, satire with a capital S in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And I think it's character driven too. At least it was when I was there. A lot of, the Second City characters that are beloved from history of SNL came from Chicago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I would say. Also, the accent helps. I mean, I don't know if your listeners will pick up a Chicago accent, maybe, but my family and other people in Chicago really have that DeBulls accent, and accents always help. And then New York, a lot of comedians who come from other places who do shows in New York talk about how the audiences sit with their arms crossed and don't lean forward. And it's make me laugh, like a challenging audience member, because they've quote unquote seen it all. Now that's a stereotype, but I do think that New York has just you want to have the mixture of art, abstract, Dada, avant-garde theater culture meets harsh stand-up.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. So, life is hard. It's a dog-eat-dog world. People are out to get you. But then this is the comedy that we're going to make despite all of that.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in New York, and I always say, I always like to visit New York, and I always like to leave New York. And I think the reason is that, the highs in New York are super high, right? You just, you're going to get some of the world's best food, you're going to get the world's best art and culture, but you're also going to get the world's biggest headache.
Yeah.
Because just the subway is a pain in the ass, and it's sweltering in the summer, and it's incredibly expensive. So it's sort of like a tale of two cities in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for LA, what I've always loved about LA comedy in the last, 40 years is the emphasis on character for the mainstream. So Pee Wee Herman started his whole career doing one-man shows as Pee Wee Herman.
Okay.
Whoopi Goldberg's one-woman show, which is a character-based one-woman show that became her HBO special, started here.
Mm-hmm.
Of the Groundlings, Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig is all from LA-based comedy. And I've always respected that. I think audiences are a little nicer here. I've done some stand-up here, and I do think audiences are nicer because, hey, they left their nice house and they're here, aren't they? So they might as well laugh.
You're saying they're not in some shitty studio.
Yes.
And you're better off sitting in a comedy club than you are in your studio. But here you have you can live a little better.
Yes. And in New York, there's foot traffic. So the guy that's in the front row, maybe he doesn't want to be there. But hey, the subway is not working and it's $5. And it's make me laugh. But in LA, it's they planned out their night.
They had to get parking.
Parking was validated. They're here to see the comedy. And but I also do think that can lend itself to disappointment.
Indeed. Yes. Higher expectations.
Yeah, it's higher expectations. It's not TV. It's not like the TV, you know?
And, I've always sort of thought of LA as a place that you come to cash in the sense that you might kind of develop your comedy chops in Chicago or New York. But if you're going to really take this to the next level, especially beyond being a stand-up, you end up in LA.
Yes. How I would describe that, I guess, is, Chicago is comedy for the community, like the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
New York is comedy for each other, other comics, and LA is comedy for the world.
For the world.
So you, in a positive light, yes, cash in, but also, a big reason I moved here is to make the things that I was making in a basement in New York bring the mountain to me, kind of thing.
When you say for each other, you mean for other comics?
Yeah, the comics comic concept, I think, is definitely a New York concept. Although people from other places will say different, but... Yeah,
that's great. I wish I could... when we were doing the humor code, there was someone had this really pithy saying about New York versus LA. I just can't remember what it was. I've searched through my emails. I can't figure it out. But I think you might have just given me a new way to say it. So New York is comedy for each other and LA is comedy for the world. It's great.
In a positive light. And people say that, then that's lowest common denominator, they might say, because then the comedy for the world has to be applicable and translated.
But comedy for the world pays the bills.
Yeah. And other people get to see it.
So I actually want to talk about your bill paying. So
my Venmo is.
So Claire, you are an accomplished comic.
That's very nice.
You've spent 5 years on an Upright Citizens Brigade house team.
Yes.
As I said, you've sold scripts. You've helped produce things. You have chops.
Thank you.
And the other day on Twitter, so we were Twitter friends.
We are Twitter friends.
We met via Twitter. This is our first time ever meeting.
Yeah.
And I was just telling you how much I like you on Twitter.
Thank you.
As an aside, you have one of the best like-to-tweet ratios on Twitter.
Wow.
So
can you call my mom and
So I've talked about this with a friend of mine about, I think So one of the neat things about Twitter is it basically says like, how many tweets you've had in your Twitter career and how many likes you've had in your Twitter career. And I have this, pet hypothesis that the best people have at least an equal like to tweet ratio. That means that they're saying to someone, I like your tweet just as often as they put out a tweet into the world. Mm-hmm. Right. And I say equal, you know why? Because that's what mine are. I'm about equal. You, however, have like a 6-to-1 like to tweet ratio.
Oh, really?
You like lots and lots of tweets. Lots of tweets. 6 times as many tweets, maybe 5. I forget the number. You had 30,000 likes on Twitter. So you've given 30,000 tweets a thumbs up kind of thing versus maybe 5,000 or 6,000 tweets. I just think that's an...
Do you mean that I'm liking other people's tweets? Yes.
Not yours are being liked.
Yeah. I mean...
So why is that? Is that the Midwestern...
I like to read other people's tweets. I, will go down and like 40 tweets that one person has done in a day, reading them in like a split second because... I think that I like to use a like as a way of, usually it's to other comedians saying like, hey, like, yes, like keep doing what you're doing. And like, look, whenever anyone follows me who's, and maybe this is, biased, but like a young female comedian or writer of like literally any sort, like novelist, journalist, like I will follow them back and then go and like a ton of their tweets. To just be like, yeah, like I see you, like we see each other online. But I also love Twitter, and my husband, you should look at his handle is at, I guess, Brendan Gallagher now. He changed it recently. He's always scrolling and liking.
You two are meant for each other.
Yes. I'm on Twitter more because of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm saying this in a very positive way. I forget why I brought it up, but I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's a neat thing. So you're accomplished, and yet you tweeted yesterday or the other day. Anybody have any work out there for some writing or research?
Yeah.
What's going on?
So, okay. All right. So
and you were talking, and when we were setting up, you were talking about a temp job.
I have a temp job. It's killing me. So I have sold television pilots. I have scripts that are in development, and I have done work. I've fully rewritten other people's scripts. Because I am a non-union writer, this is very low paid work.
Okay.
We're talking under $1,000 sometimes for some of this work. And sometimes it's like I've rewritten certain scripts 11 times for production companies because they'll be like, Claire, we love the script. We are going to sell this script for you. I'm like, okay. And then, will you rewrite it for Amazon in this way? Will you rewrite it for Hulu? Hulu is looking for brother-sister comedies, and there is a brother character. Will you give the brother more lines?
I see.
Certain actor is interested in this, but he's not the main character. If you could make this older guy character a lead, and as if this is easy. This is not easy. This involves complete
major
restructuring.
This is not stylistic changes. No. These are substantive changes.
Yes, and
structural changes.
Yes, I've also done one where I had a long TV pilot, like 40 pages for a 30-minute comedy. It's too long, but when I wrote this draft, it was just for me. It was just funny. And then they were like, this could be a choose your own adventure VR experience. Okay. So then we're rewriting it form. So now it's not even television. And I like the experience a lot because I get to learn. I've also done things like, hey, Claire, you like storytelling. What about a podcast about this person? If you could do all the research and make a pitch deck, we'll give you money. And then, we ran out of money, actually. But,
assholes.
Right. But I think that if I had someone standing over me, guiding my career, they would maybe tell me not to do these opportunities, but these make me a better writer because it's writing for someone else. For, when there's a chance that other people will see this, it does change how you take notes.
This is in the business is called working on spec.
Spec, yes.
That's
or
right.
Development. Okay. And so sometimes it is paid. Like sometimes it's like Okay, you know in like a nail salon when there's like $1 framed on the wall, like their first dollar, I try to say like, hey, listen, I need like a fee that's going to be telling me that this really happened so that there's a contract, even how small. And sometimes they give me like a small handful of money.
I see.
But so then I have to take other jobs that are adjacent to this. Now I would really...
Because you have bills. You can't
Yes,
wait.
I have bills.
You're not waiting for the big paycheck. So they haven't run out of talent. They haven't run out of motivation. They just run out of money and they have to leave.
Right. And I also have friends who've had the one big paycheck, but that only lasts like 2 years. Like the one that is like the windfall paycheck where they sell a movie. I've had friends who like do that and then they're on the couch writing their own scripts, like being as productive as they want to be. And then 2 years later, there's no more money.
I know comics who haven't had a car, then they have a car. Then they go back to not having a car. Then they have a car again. And it just depends on whether they have a show or not.
Yes. And then at the top, you know, so it's structured. If you were a showrunner and you had a show that's on television, you would work for 6 months or maybe 2 months and then be able to take the rest of the year off because you're at the top pay grade. And you could use that rest of the time to work on other projects, you know, work on another show. Or, you know, live in Europe. I don't know. Like it depends on what they want to do. But then that schedule structure trickles down all the way down to like me, where it's like, hey, Claire, could you rewrite somebody's script for no credit and a minimal fee? And I'm like, yes, because it's fun and it's my passion. But
and you're trying to find an opportunity.
Yeah. And meet people. But yeah. So I've done these other writing adjacent jobs and maybe this is helpful for someone listening, but the good ones have been blogging, which is freelance. So you're going to have to pay big taxes at the end of the year. And it's also not consistent, much like the other writing. Temping, which all depends on the temp assignment.
What type of temp assignment do you have right now?
So right now I'm like an administrative assistant.
Okay. You're like the world's most overqualified administrative assistant.
That's very nice. I do book myself into a conference room for 2 hours for a quote unquote call that I have. It's just me writing.
Okay.
I actually have thought about this. I could write a book on like how to be the laziest person while getting like.
It seems like the premise for a sitcom of some sort, no?
Yeah. I mean, I have so many tips. Here's another tip, free tip. If you're a woman or I guess a man. Okay. So if you bring a backpack to work, what you're going to do is you're going to set up a little tableau. So you have your computer, you get a coffee, get, you know, some pens, maybe some food wrappers, make a tableau on your desk. Then have a bag inside that bag of your other stuff, maybe a second computer. So like if they give you a work computer, you can bring your laptop and then go wherever you want. Because you look really busy when you have all that shit all over your.
It's a scene. It's a scene in a movie. That's what you're describing.
So I call it my go bag, which is I can go wherever. I've gone to meetings. One time I pitched a movie during the middle of the workday in Beverly Hills, and they thought that I was in the bathroom, I think.
This is brilliant. So
please don't fire me.
This will come out after you're done with your temp job anyways.
I don't really care.
You know, so I want to talk about first of all, this is a fantastic story. I'm writing it down. I'm working on a new book. I'm like, can I work this in? So I talk about how comedians are sort of natural rule breakers.
Yes.
And this is a perfect example of your go bag. What do you call it? A go bag?
My go bag. Yes. I have some other tips, but
can you give me some more?
Okay. I wrote them all down the other day because I was thinking of telling the next girl who gets this job when I quit.
Can you send it to me?
Yeah, I could send it to you.
But give me one more. If you have one.
Okay. So like, here's some things on day one to tell people. 1, I have a big family. Okay. That really implies that you have a lot of family, quote unquote, issues that could potentially come up. Another thing is kind of to imply like you might want to start a family. So I'm a female and maybe that would come easier to me. I'm also married, but I said that when I was single too, that I was like looking to start a family. So that means a lot of doctor's appointments.
Okay.
You know, for if I was.
So this is, hold on, to be clear, the whole point of this is to find time to do the work you want to do while being paid by these people to do the work that you don't want to do.
Right. And also, usually I get it all done.
I see. You're already getting it done.
Yeah. Like, my advice to anyone with a day job for anything is you just need to get like a B+.
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of comedians are type A people. Like I would describe myself a type A person, but you do not need to get the A+ on the day job. Be a good or a pretty good, not fireable. And if you get fired, then you can go on unemployment. And that's, as I like to call unemployment, government support of the arts.
Yes.
Low paid, hard to live on government support of the arts. So, okay, what was I saying?
Is it family? Start a family?
You're starting a family. I know people in your comments are going to be like, this woman is a scammer, but you just do what you have to do. I think,
it is interesting you say this. Like, I think it's very easy to be judgmental until you're hungry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like until you're worried about being homeless, until there's a thing where desperation leads to, call it innovation, I get it. I understand.
And also, is this different than the people I watch who scroll on Facebook all day and then they do their assignments late in the profession of their choice? Like
as their primary
career. So, so another thing I say is that I have a vitamin D deficiency, which most Americans do, so it's not technically a lie. But
so you have to get outside and get some sun?
Yes. So because I need sun, that means that I have to go out, and maybe work outside, quote unquote, or go to the cafe across the street with the outdoor tables, depending on the work environment. And in doing so, then I can take phone calls.
I think you need, far be it from me to tell you how to do your craft. This feels like a character in a movie.
Thank you. I just started writing this down. I have 10 years experience of being a pretty good temp. So those jobs, temp, blogging, and then I used to be the bartender at UCB, but that bar is closed now. And that was fun because I got to meet people and
it's good for networking and
and it was beer and wine only. I can't make cocktails.
So it's easy.
It's very easy.
This is great. So you, speaking of UCB, you were on well, first of all, I hope you get your big break.
Thank you.
So you can just make jokes about your grifting.
I don't have it as bad as I was just reading. I can't remember her name. She's a Scrubs writer. She had the Broke Girl Diaries, which came out around the early 2000s.
Okay.
She also wrote for Boondocks.
Okay.
I will have to look up her name. But
I'll put the Broke Girl. I'll put it in the exhibits.
And Broke Girl Diaries was her in college. She was actually extremely on the edge in terms of being broke. And she talks about all of her strategies. Like she used to count up, ramen was 35 cents and she would sometimes only had 33 cents and then have to take the ramen, like steal it, put the money on the counter, come back and give 2 cents the next day.
I see. Wow.
She was really struggling.
I try not to, we grew up without much money, but like we were food stamps poor. We weren't welfare poor, right? Like to me, that was like there's always people worse, much worse.
Yes.
So you were on a Upright Citizens Brigade house team for 5 years in New York. What was the name of the team?
So I was on multiple teams. My longest team was 4 of those 5 years, and it was called Bellevue.
Okay.
And then I was on, the first one I was on, I think was called Everything Rabbits, which I really cringe saying. And then the last one I was on, I can't remember the name because I was only on it for 5 months and then I moved.
I see. What have you taken from that experience, from being on a house team, doing long form improv weekly?
Right, this is long form. This is sketch.
Oh, it was sketch. Oh, I missed that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
It was.
You were on a sketch team. Okay. Yeah. So I think it probably would be useful for some listeners to understand the difference between an improv house team and a sketch house team.
Right. So an improv house team is you get up on stage and perform 30-minute show based on a suggestion, and it's totally off the cuff improvised. And there's like 7 teammates. A UCB sketch team, which were called mod teams.
Okay.
They're still called that. It would be 11 people total typically, or 10 people, 5 writers, 6 actors.
Okay.
And throughout the course of a month, we would write a new sketch show. So brand new, completely new sketch show, 30 to 40 minute sketch show every single month, the brand new one. And so the teams I was on, because we were together for so long and I was really, fortunate to be on, I felt like an advanced level one. We were writing like narrative, like fully. So most teams do, in 30 minutes, you could do 6 sketches or 7 sketches. And every writer gets a sketch in.
I see.
And the actors act in it. And sometimes the actors pitch characters or collaborate, but it's mostly separate writers and actors. But our team ended up doing like 30-minute, almost like sketch plays that were, the sketches were integrated in the story that we were telling. It really helped me.
Yeah, that's great. I'm in Los Angeles on a sabbatical, so I'm going to be taking improv. I've taken 101 and 201. I'm going to take 301 and 401, but I'm also going to take a sketch class.
I would do it.
I'm really eager. I love improv, but I'm eager to try sketch. I've done stand-up. I've done improv. I've never done sketch. Those are the kind of 3 pillars of comedy. So I'm eager to see how I do. I've started a list of ideas.
Yeah.
What tips do you have for me as I think about developing sketch ideas? Not the mechanics of writing the sketch, but just identifying and developing, just the premises for sketches.
Let's see. So, there is a thing that's in between improv and sketch that's really out here in LA, but I'm sure it's in other places, called improv for sketch.
Oh, I've heard about this. So I think Jeremy Sender, one of my previous guests, talked about this, which is like something comes up in an improv.
Yeah.
And you go, that could be a sketch.
Yes. And I believe, I may be totally wrong, but I believe the woman who wrote, like, there's like 2 female comedy writers who wrote a lot of sitcoms in the 90s that are like right now escaping me because I don't want to get it wrong. Started these classes here in LA.
Oh, there's an actual class that develops
called Improv for Sketch.
Interesting. Yeah. Should I start with that?
I looked the other day because I was doing a casting for something like
of course you were.
I'm doing a reading of a screenplay that I wrote, and I needed somebody to play the mom. And I was like looking through people who teach classes, and I was like, maybe I could ask. And I didn't see when the next class is, though, because I was looking at that.
I'll see.
But I can send it to you. But then for sketch, my tips would be write everything down on your phone. Anything that makes like a group of friends laugh at drinks or dinner, I think is enough, especially like social, like things that are like socially strange or things that are just inaccuracies in the way we speak. It could be the behavior of someone. I think character sketches personally are really hard.
So what is a character sketch?
Okay, so like the cheerleaders on SNL, their characters, and everything in the sketch revolves around making those characters as funny as possible. Mary Catherine Gallagher. I know these are the most dated references. Let's see. What's a current sketch character?
Yeah, I can only think of like Stuart Smiley.
Stuart, these sketch characters were, and Strangers
Tony
with
Clifton for Andy Kaufman.
Yes, Strangers with Candy is a sketch, as a character sketch as sitcom.
I see.
Yeah.
So versus a narrative sketch.
Yes.
Or just versus what?
Like
a situational sketch. I'm trying to come up with language.
Here's one. So this is a pretty bad sketch I once wrote, but the premise was first time listener, long time caller.
Yes.
I've
heard it 100 times.
But long time listener, first time caller.
Switched it.
So it's the sketch is that it's first time listener, long time caller.
Got it. Okay.
So it's just a lady it's just a situational thing of a lady that calls different radio stations.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's more situational, or like.
And that's a reversal. That's a fun little comedy technique.
Things that are in.
Okay, hold on. Let's get into a good one.
Okay.
Which is yours, right? So you have a sketch that has 108 million views.
Yes.
So correct me if I mischaracterize this.
No,
sketch.
please. It's a little filthy. So
it's fine. It's very funny because also there's this revelation in it that takes it to the next level. So there's a couple sort of passionately making out, and they're headed to consensually have sex.
Yes.
The man stops the woman before it gets too hot and heavy and says, "Listen, there's something I need to tell you." She becomes concerned. He says, I was in an accident and I've had my penis, basically he's had a transfusion or what is it?
Penis
replacement. Transplant. That's
yes.
right. Transplant.
And that's real.
Happens.
They can do that now.
Okay.
In rare cases.
So that happens. He goes, don't worry, it works fine. Everything's good and whole thing. And actually a prosthetic penis comes out at one point in the sketch and it's erect. And she recognizes the penis from the dead man from which it was transplanted.
Yes.
And he is
her husband.
Her widow. Yeah, she's a widow. Her dead husband.
Her dead husband's penis.
And it is laugh out loud funny.
Yeah. Thank you.
Where and there's lots of jokes about threesomes and saying goodbye and all this kind of stuff, right? So
it's about loss, yes.
It's about loss and so on. It's very, very good. And I think the actors do a very nice job with it.
Yeah.
And it has 108 million views.
Which may be sick people.
Well, here's the thing about it. That I don't know speaking of likes and dislikes, I don't know if you've noticed this. So usually when something has 100 million views, it's overwhelmingly liked, right? So if you go on Gangnam Style or,
a Justin Bieber, yeah.
Overwhelmingly, there's 10%, of people who hate it and 90% of people who love it.
Right.
This has a 2-to-1 like to dislike ratio.
I have some explanations for this.
So a surprising number of people hate or dislike this thing, but also I looked at some of the comments. There's a bunch of gibberish in the comments.
Yes, who are probably bots.
That's what I mean. So has someone written a program to turn its attention to your dead penis sketch?
That I don't know, but I do know to get a view, you have to watch, to get a view to count, you have to watch at least 30 seconds, right? Is that correct?
That sounds familiar.
Or maybe it's 10 seconds, but at least but the sketch starts right off. So there's no bumper, there's nothing. For your listeners, this is a filmed sketch. This poor video quality.
Yeah, it was. Someone was in the audience, or there was a camera there. Yeah,
someone was in the audience filming this, and then we put this on. Oh, One Idiot. That's my sketch team that has this video hosted is called One Idiot.
Okay, that's funny that reminded you of this.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the channel. Okay, so. The title of
I'll put it in the exhibits, of course, so people will be able to see it.
Thank you. Get some more views.
Sure.
The title of the video.
Hey, listeners, make sure you like this. Let's help Claire's ratio.
The title of the video is Dead Man's Penis.
Yes.
So there are some sick people that look for dead penis.
And that are disappointed.
And they're disappointed, so they get a down thumbs up.
Okay.
There's also a lot of comments about how this is filthy, disgusting. It really is not the most disgusting sketch I've ever written. I would not even call it there are workplaces where you could watch this and it would be okay.
Yeah. I'd say it's PG-13.
PG-13. But people are talking about, because the first person who commented wrote something like, "Oh, this is so gross." And I wrote this, thank you very much, or something. And then there's people being like, "You're gross." And I think it's because I'm a female who wrote something gross. But that's maybe some of the dislikes, but I think it's mostly that. And I think there are bots that look for porn on YouTube to take and put on porn sites or
I see.
Whatever. I don't really know how this all works, but I think I would give a large percent of the views away to bots.
I see. Okay.
But that still leaves a lot of views.
Look, even if it's 50 million views, it's a lot of views. Yeah, I just had to bring that up. So you write sketch. So you do a lot of things. So you have watched television for a living.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So you've seen all 176 episodes of Three's Company.
I did. Yes.
You've also watched Soap, Bosom Buddies, the Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. I don't even know what that is.
Highly recommend.
Why are you watching TV for a living?
So this was a job I had last year. We didn't really talk about it. I really enjoyed this job. I was brought on to a documentary film as a person who writes TV, to watch other TV shows to help them find clips from these old TV shows that help them tell their story.
I see.
So the film...
So are you cataloging?
Yeah, in an editing software, cataloging, but also my official title was assistant story producer. Okay. So producing the story. So if you watch a documentary and there's old clips, which most documentaries have, there's a person that pulls those old clips together. Sometimes they're called a researcher or an archivist or a story producer, assistant story producer. So this job, I was brought on to do this and I really enjoyed it. I can't say what the documentary was about because they made me sign so many NDAs. I'm afraid that someone is sitting outside this room watching me right now. But it's a retrospective. It's a historical media documentary looking through media in history. So I watched all these shows and I pulled out clips and I showed the director and I said, this story you're trying to tell about insert what it's about. Mm-hmm. This clip really illustrates this topic.
I see.
And so to do that though, a lot of these old shows don't have like the definitive guide. So I watched all of Three's Company start to finish and I watched it on an editing machine. So I watched it at 1.25 speed to finish it.
Did you like this job?
I love this job.
Okay.
It was a great job for me.
Certainly as a comedian,
yeah, it was
watching
educational.
Three's Company, right? It's a great comedy. No?
Yeah, and so is Dobie Gillis. Dobie Gillis is an amazing. It's what Scooby-Doo was based on. Dobie Gillis. They added the mystery and the dog, but the kids in
really?
It's like teeny. It's a teeny bopper.
70s, 60s, 50s,
late 50s, early 60s.
That makes sense because Scooby-Doo came around in the 70s, didn't it?
Yeah, maybe it's mid 60s, but it's it's a teeny bopper show.
I see.
And there's some the female characters are really good in it.
That's
They're
great.
Very I was surprised and
ahead of its time.
Yes, and the female character that everyone loved in it actually grew up to become a California politician. Sheila Kuehl is a city council member in Santa Monica. I believe we'll have to look that up, but she just won her re-election. She's functioning politician, Sheila Kuehl.
Well, we know that this state has turned actors into politicians before, so I'm happy to see that.
Yes, I don't love all of the actors who've become politicians.
Of course, yeah. So you have a lot going on. How do you stay organized? You were early to this podcast. I complimented and complained about it because I was counting on you to be exactly on time or late just because it's LA and because you're a comic. How do you stay organized? Do you have like tips, tricks, systems?
Okay, so a lot of the projects I'm doing are self-motivated projects. So like I'm writing various things for myself and then I have my development projects that I'm being not paid to help them, get a script into pitching shape for this or that. So I guess staying organized, like I said, now, part of it is this like working at work while working.
So you get double time.
I think also...
You're a good planner? You're a good planner?
I am a good planner. My husband...
You have a calendar? You have a good calendar?
Yeah, I have a calendar. My husband's a writer as well. Oh, outlining. Mm-hmm. Outlining is what saves you time.
Yeah, sorry.
Outlining is what saves you time. If you start writing something just in a script document, it's going to take you forever.
Because you have to format it right. And I think people like to do that because it feels like they're working, but they're not really working.
Yeah, I know. But so like this, I'm writing a screenplay right now and there's an 11-page single space outline. And then I can just highlight a section I'm going to get done. 12 minutes later, that section's done.
I see.
Moving on. So
versus if you're putting it's called final draft. Final draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
And I think also putting pressure. Look, everyone's process is different, but being like, okay, Saturday from 8 a.m. until 6, I'm going to get it all done. It's just putting that pressure on yourself. Like, I think you got to put yourself in less pressure situations.
I do a lot of, I know that feeling. Like, first of all, it's nearly impossible to do creative work for 9 hours.
No, you can't.
Right. So give me a 1 to 3 hour block on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I'll get twice as much work done in 9 hours across 3 days than 9 hours in 1 day. Or I'll get 2.5 times in 1 hour a day across 9 days. Mm-hmm. Just because of focus, energy, and so on.
And sleep
and being well rested and
sleeping on the idea helps. Yeah.
Indeed. Any other tips or tricks or you probably have them and don't even know that you have them because you have them and other comics don't.
Yes.
You're good at writing things down, I bet.
Yes, I am. I guess the thing about being late, and I'm going to sound like such a narc or something, but like it's other people's time.
Yeah, sure.
And I have a high respect for my own time. So like if we said that this is when we're meeting, then that's when we're meeting. And then that's the time. Maybe I sound like I get that. Like idea. A serious person, but yeah, that and waking up, I wake up really early.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. You know, I always joke that I get more done before 10 a.m. than my students get done all day, in part because I start early.
Yeah.
I start right away.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of vices either, like, because, you know.
So no hangovers.
No, I mean, I love cocktails, but, you know, there's specific days. And you know what else is a good tip? And this is not a time-saving tip, but I think you have to have the thing you do when things go well and the thing you do when things go bad. So like when anything goes well in my career, like tiniest, we're talking baby steps, like someone who I look up to agreed to maybe read a script of mine. Okay. That's on, like, they emailed me back. Maybe you do something for you that is like the smallest thing, like I'm going to go get ice cream from the ice cream man on the corner, or like I'm going to, you know, have a little cocktail at home, just like to mark it as a baby step.
Yeah.
And then when things go bad, you also need to have the thing that you do to make yourself better, to say, all right, whether that's like, I'm going to give myself, like for me, you know, I had a rejection 2 weeks ago that was kind of devastating, and nothing's that no one's dying, but like it was something that I thought was going well. And then I was rejected from it. And you know what? I gave myself like an evening to be like, you know, F this business. I hate everything. I don't want to do this anymore, and cry. And like, then the next day it's like, all right, we're back on the horse. We're back on the program. But for some people, that's like getting a massage or something, going to Disneyland.
Yeah. You know, a buddy of mine, Darwin Metzger, talked about a actor that he knew who does his big celebration when he gets invited to a casting.
Yeah.
He celebrates like being invited to a casting call. He doesn't celebrate when he gets the part because he already has enough excitement if he gets the part, and most of the time he doesn't get the part.
And so it's up to chance. Yes, I celebrate when I get a meeting with someone that wants to meet with me and thinks that I am enough for the meeting. That is like a bigger celebration than like if it goes, because I've had things greenlit and then they run out of money. So then like,
if you delay your celebrations, you end up not having enough celebrations.
Yeah. You might as well celebrate along the way. Baby steps.
I also think too, like when at the very end of things, you're often so sick of them, you're just happy they're done. Yeah. And so it's better to celebrate early. So in the world of academia, what I think when you're a researcher, you submit these papers to journals, you should celebrate your first revision, because that's such a monumental step to being invited for a revision. Yeah. That your probabilities that it gets in go so far up. Yeah. But if you wait through 2 or 3 more revisions till it's finally accepted, you just want to be like, can we please move on?
Yeah, I agree.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I even gave you a chance to cancel this meeting and you were like, no.
We said we're doing it. Yes.
So, I don't know the meaning of the word shot, but you've been shot on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh my God. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
I don't know.
Trigger warning. We should have a trigger warning for anyone who gun violence is something. This is serious. I'm laughing, but yeah. So trigger warning if gun violence is something that triggers you. Okay. I was driving on Hollywood Boulevard. I'm not trying to scare you, but literally like very, very close to here.
I live in Hollywood. I'm 2 blocks from Hollywood Boulevard.
Yes. And this is, I would say, about, less than 7 blocks from here.
Okay. Wait, how long ago? Because this neighborhood has changed a lot.
November 2017.
Oh, so not even 2 years ago. Lovely. Yeah. Go on.
So I was driving from the gym. I go to a gym right by here, and I am driving, and I'm in my car. I drive a Fiat, which is a very gendered,
flimsy metal.
Also gendered. I would say, not to be, whatever, but I think mostly women drive Fiats, and I support my men who drive Fiats. But look, I'm not exactly the road warrior compared to other cars. And this white van is pulling out of a gas station and he pulls right in front of me. And I honk at him because, again, I drive a Fiat. It's one step above a smart car.
Yes.
And
these are petite cars.
Petite. Yeah. And so he'll see me and he responds to that. And this was not like a big like honk. This was like a little beep. Uh-huh. He takes out a BB gun that had metal bullets in it.
Okay.
And he's as close as we are, which is like less than 10 feet, begins shooting my windshield.
We're like 4 or 5 feet away. I want people thinking that I have you 10 feet away.
No. This is like, it's like 5 feet away.
Okay.
But he's in a car and I'm in a car.
I see.
But he's out the window with the window rolled down, shooting my windshield with a BB gun. Bullets are going through the passenger side.
Okay.
And I'm holding on to the car's in drive. I'm driving my car.
Yes.
Holding onto the steering wheel. This is so fucked up. Can I swear?
I haven't. Look, I about half of my interviewees are comics, so I just put an explicit rating on every episode.
Yes. So I'm holding on the steering wheel, and this is very fucked up, but I just started like laughing. I was like, this is how I'm going to die. Like, I was like, what do you do? Like, this is like in the Titanic movie. I'm like the person that's like, I guess I'll drink the champagne and just die.
The band will just keep on playing.
Yeah, that's me. Like, I'm not the person that's like, okay, I'm going to try to climb off the side of it. No. So I'm like laughing and he thinks that I'm like, obviously like he sees me laughing and like shoots the car more. Glass goes through, it goes through my hair. It's cutting, like glass started cutting me. Mm-hmm. And then he drove away. They never caught him. I filed immediately.
How is it they don't get him? The guy was in the...
We have security footage of it.
Yes.
The car was stolen. Metal BB gun painted to look like an AK-47. It looked like an AK-40. Like the orange was painted. It was like a big gun.
I see.
The BBs were like the same size as bullets. So, yeah. I mean, it was crazy. And I will say this. So if you even witness a violent crime in California, you are eligible for like all kinds of aid. So honestly, this is sad, but I had PTSD from this. Like,
this is terrifying.
It's sad because, PTSD is like, it sucks. It's so humiliating and it's hard to explain to anyone else because it's like your experience. And it's not like I was like in a war with people who could commiserate with me. But I got 40 hours of free therapy you can have the therapist of your choice. Or religious professional, meaning like I went to my rabbi, you could do that, or acupuncture or something. So you get 40 hours and they bill the state and the state pays them. That's even if you witness a violent crime.
I see. So you got some therapy.
Yes, I did. And, I did get therapy through that. And, I think that it's important for people to know because it's part of what makes California great is like, I don't know that every state does this kind of program.
Oh, I can assure you that they don't.
Yeah.
This is the exception rather than the rule.
Yes.
I'm guessing.
But I did have to pay for my windshield out of pocket because I have insurance, but it doesn't cover the full. Like I had to replace the windshield. The computer of my car was fucked up from little shards of glass going in it. Mm-hmm. I was fine. I mean, I had like glass in my hair, but physically I was fine. I didn't crash my car, which I could have done.
This is a good reminder because I grew up in New Jersey and in Colorado, I honk at people. And I do so because it's my natural instinct as a Jerseyan.
Yes.
And then the other one is that Colorado people are so polite that they don't honk even when they should. That is, even when someone's doing something really stupid, they're just too polite. And I'm like, no, when you're doing something stupid, you need to get feedback that you're being stupid.
Yes.
And so my natural tendency is and there's lots of stupidity on the road here because there's lots of people on the road.
Right. It's a driver's city.
It's a driver's city. And the context actually leads people to misbehave because they're just so desperate to get to wherever they're going. And so I'm fairly liberal with the horn here also. It's a good reminder that that may backfire on me at some point.
Yes. And this happened in morning rush hour. Mm-hmm. So the kind of like crushing thing is like, the bystander thing. There was a city bus like next to me watching this happen with like passengers in it. And then I had to pull over and then they were honking me for pulling over. Like I had to pull over to call the police.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And the bystander thing, I know people saw this happen. There were pedestrians watching and no one gave a shit. And that was also something that I had to deal with for a second, that I was literally I'm waving my hands above my head, being like, can anyone help me? Also, this happened across the street from a fire station.
Yeah, so I might be able to help restore a tiny bit of faith in humanity.
Yeah.
So there's an area of psychology called social psychology. I've studied a bunch of it, though that's not what my PhD is in. One of the sort of foundational studies within social psychology looked at bystander effects. Essentially, this idea that sometimes good people don't do the right thing.
Of course, we're not.
And so when people don't do the right thing, we have a tendency to blame their personhood, their personality and values and so on.
Yeah.
And what these social psychologists, this guy Darley and Latané, I may be mispronouncing the other name, did famously was demonstrate the role that context plays, such as like the fact that it's rush hour actually makes it less likely that someone helps you because of the time crunch.
Right.
Because if they help you, now they're late for work. And so these guys actually did a study with seminary students. So they had the seminary students prepare a talk about the Good Samaritan. And then, so these people are primed about helping their fellow person.
Yes.
You're familiar with this study?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just laughing.
And so they had these seminary students on Princeton Seminary, and they're on the campus there, and they're basically, they give them instructions as to where to go to give the sermon. Okay. And along the path of these seminary students, they planted someone who looked like they were homeless and desperate, like slumped over and so on. This is Princeton, not Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, on Hollywood Boulevard, there's someone slumped over every 25 feet.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. I'm still not adapting to it.
Yeah.
So, and the person would sort of groan as the student walks by. And then they measured whether the person stops and intervenes and helps out. What they found was what predicted either the lack of attentiveness or the attentiveness was how late the seminary student was to giving the sermon. So right before they left on the trip, they either said, oh, you have plenty of time, or you might even be early, or something like, oh, wow, you're really late. You better get going. And so the folks who were running late didn't stop, and the people who had plenty of time were more likely to stop.
I see. So
that's one thing. So your rush hour thing worked against you.
Yes.
The second one is, and I can't tell you the names of the people who did it. It might have been Darley also. But they looked at what they call bystander effects.
Right.
And the idea is that the more bystanders there are, the less likely that any one person goes to help, because what they're expecting is someone will help.
Right.
So you're better off having your car break down on a rural farm road than along a busy highway. Because when that farmer's driving down the road, not only is maybe he not in a rush, but also he knows that if he doesn't stop, you might be stranded all day.
Right.
But the highway, everybody else is just zooming by. Someone else will help. Someone else will help. Someone else will help.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say that Angelinos may be a little more harsh than the average person, but
It's true.
They're not evil in the sense that they are also, while you were victimized, their lack of attention falls down to basic sort of human principles.
But maybe they also didn't want to get involved.
That's a good
gun
third
violence
reason.
is like, maybe they think that I've been involved in something. I mean, so the first question the police asked me was,
do you have drugs in the car?
No, they asked me if I was involved in gang violence.
I see. By the way, people will see the picture of you. You do not seem like the stereotype of oh wait, you mean was that person in a gang?
They asked me
if you're involved in a gang.
like if I'm involved in a gang or if I did something to someone in a gang.
I see. Okay.
Meaning like, of course they asked me, is this your boyfriend? I'm like, no. Like, yeah, my boyfriend shot me and ran away and I have no way to contact him.
It is true, most violence, especially violence perpetuated against women, is from a man that they know. Yeah.
And sometimes it's a man you don't know and will never know.
That's true. In this case.
Well, yes.
That story's crazy.
It's wild.
So we're about out of time. This is everything that I hoped it would be.
Oh, thank you, Peter.
Knowing your Twitter persona, you're even better in person.
Oh, thank you.
I always ask this question. we'll have to limit your number of answers because I think you're going to have a lot. But what are you reading, watching, or listening to that's really good? Like not just run-of-the-mill good, but it's just really, really good.
Okay.
You give me one or two things.
Okay. So I'm not going to say watch. Oh gosh. Okay. So I'll say 2 books and 1 TV show.
Good. Okay.
So let's see. Okay. So books I am reading. I just finished Ladies Who Punch by Raymond Satuta.
Okay.
Ladies Who Punch is about The View and how The View, the TV show, got started.
Okay.
And all the different hosts, moderators they've had, like Whoopi from Elizabeth Hasselbeck. And it's just kind of wild. And what I liked about it is it gives you a reminder of how precarious the nature of Hollywood is. People were fired from that show, both on stage and off, for the most trivial reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one. I think, and it's just fascinating. It also gives you a sense of where we're at in terms of Meghan McCain being on the show and how did we get here? And looking at Elizabeth Hasselbeck, and because The View makes headlines daily to this day, and it's been on TV for so long.
Okay.
And I remembered the premiere because I was home from school that day.
Neat.
That's one. A second book I'm reading is How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. It's a new book. I think she's brilliant. I never read philosophy books. I never read theoretical books. It's kind of, I would say, sprawling in a positive way, talking about capitalism, where we're at in terms of that, how companies manipulate you, like with Twitter, social media websites manipulate you. I highly recommend it. I can't say enough good things about it. It's just kind of a where we're at right now in society general book. I think it's great. And then for watching, oh man, What We Do in the Shadows was so good. The TV show. That is the mockumentary about vampires living in a house together based on the movie of the same name.
Okay.
It's brilliant. It's so
it's
funny.
a TV show that came out of a movie.
Yes.
Interesting.
And the first season aired this spring. It's over now. They had their season finale. And
is it on what? Where do you find it?
I watched it through Amazon. I just bought it as a season. I can't remember. I want to say it's on something like a cable network that I don't have. But I really enjoyed it. It's my sensibility.
Is it a drama? Is it a comedy?
No, it's comedy. It's a mockumentary. So this is like looking at camera, doing monologues, but as vampires living in a house. It's great.
Fun. That's great. Claire, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. This is really a delight.
This is really fun. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.